Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we're discussing my thoughts on episode 7 of the anime series 3D Kanojo Real Girl. Okay, so this episode was really kind of weird, really goofy, really strange, really odd. And I'm not somebody who spends a whole hell of a lot of time obsessing about bad animation unless it's really noticeably bad, like really stand out, really stark in contrast to what we've seen before in a given series. Like people, they'll say, whether it's a cheaply produced series or they just have a cheaply produced episode in a given series, they'll say, oh, this episode looked bad. You could see that they were trying to cut corners and save money on a given episode or something like that. And I never really pay too much heed or credence to that. I don't really care about that as long as I'm entertained by the characterization, the depth of character. It's whether it's humorous or there's like really a level of heart to it, or it's sad or it's intense, whatever like that. I more so pay attention to those types of things. As I say, unless it gets really weird. And this episode for me was the exception to that rule, where it really felt weird. It really felt odd. I said cutting corners, and they were doing so literally with a lot of weird angles. Like they put in like Dutch angles from over the top, and close-ups on faces, on the sides of faces, and profile close-ups right up to the face. Like, if this were a live action series, at some point I would have turned to somebody and said, what, they couldn't get the camera up the person's nose? I mean, the faces were up full screen like that, and like I said, side profile of character reactions, and just it felt really janky. It felt really strange. There was just a lot to unpack. There was a lot going on. It almost felt like little vignettes of things happening, without any sort of through line, without any rhyme or reason, or follow through, leading from point A to point B. It was just kind of like, okay, here's a scene, here's a scene, here's a scene, here's a character interaction, here's another reaction. I don't know. I guess they must have been pinching pennies on this episode or something. But I'm not in the know. I have no idea. I can only speculate and make a guess, a guesstimate, because of how janky it looked. But I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't for lack of entertainment. I did find it entertaining. I did find some of the character reactions to be laugh out loud hilarious, even as strange as some of them were. I was just kind of like, okay. There's one point where it's the screen cap I used for the thumbnail, where they've got her face like half semi-turned, and she's like eagle-eyeing Satsui, who's just coming out of his classroom, and she's angled like this, and you could almost mistake it for a screen cap taken from Fooly Cooly. She looked like Haruko from Fooly Cooly. And I like, in looking at the screen cap I took for the thumbnail, I'm just like, wow, that's weird. I thought that looked really dynamic and really bold, the way they animated, like not quite a dead-on profile, but like just semi, her face was semi-turned to the camera. And I liked it. It really stood out to me as looking really cool. But then again, like, so many of Satsui's reaction shots are dead profile, just the side of his face, or up close, and he's got screwy eyebrows or whatever. Ayado in the episode, they close in on her face like 2 or 3 times, and at one point it almost looked like a watercolor, like artist's approximation of an anime reaction. For some reason it reminded me of It's a Small World in Walt Disney World, Orlando. Like the art you would see and the crafts you would see all around that ride, the ride queue and things like that. Just really, really strange looking, But I mean, as far as the characterization goes, not to keep harping on the visual aesthetics of the episode, I thought the characterization was pretty sweet for these little sort of vignettes as we got them in succession. Tsutsui and Iroha's relationship. Of course, picking up with Iroha having gone to Ishino, of all people, to seek advice. And there was a little bit of an oddity, a discrepancy, if you will, because, of course, Ishino's like, well, you saw Tsutsui talking to this new girl, Ayato. Go and throw a fit, get up in his face and be like, who's that girl you're talking to? I don't want you talking to any girls. And Iroha, very reluctantly, she's like, oh, I couldn't do that. And I almost slammed my head against the wall because isn't that exactly what she did when she walked in on Tsutsui and Ishino talking for the first time? Didn't she pointedly come up and be like, well, I guess she told Ishino, stay away from my guy. But it's still the same behavior. And now Iroha doesn't want any part of that. Now she's too reserved to want to do that. Like, huh? you did that once before. Now you don't want to, I don't know. But other than that, it was somewhat comical. Ishino, she's not as, sort of bitchy and pithy as she was. She's a little more comic relief in this episode. The whole idea toward the end where she's talking about, let's all go camping. And oh, by the way, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Tsutsui, how about you introduce me to Mitsuya? How about you have him come along, the blonde D-bag, which they were calling by his last name or whatever, Takahashi, throughout the episode. I still have it, remembered as Mitsuya. So, blonde D-bag, if you don't remember either of those names. And I thought it was funny that she's like, okay, the sole purpose of all of this, we're all gonna go camping, but, hey, by the way, invite Mitsuya. That's the whole reason for it. And, the like, coy, reserved, again, to use the term, way Ito is seemingly becoming smitten with Ayato, and she's kind of sort of oblivious to him, and there's just the barest danger of everything cursorily revolving around a potential love triangle with Ayato herself getting sort of, that doki doki heart-beating sensation when Tsutsui goes and tries to get the little caterpillar off of her head. And, so I guess, she's sort of getting swooned by him, and, of course, Ito is thinking of her now, and Iroha doesn't know at first what to make of Tsutsui and Ayato, and they're talking to each other. But then, of course, another example of comic relief was the fact that Iroha goes and approaches Ayato once, a couple of girls throw water on her, air quotes, accidentally. And she gives her a little hand towel, a handkerchief or whatever, to wipe herself down. And she immediately likes Ayato, as this sweet girl, calling her senpai and being respectful and complimentary toward her, oh, Tsutsui, he's such a nice guy. He's such a down-to-earth guy. He's so compassionate and so nice and genuine. And then to boot, his girlfriend, girlfriend senpai, you're beautiful. You're gorgeous, and you're compassionate too. And you're just heaven on earth, But it's even more hilarious when it happens with Ishino, because of course, you have Ishino getting up in Tsutsui's face for a lack of Iroha's doing so, basically giving him 20 questions, the third degree, about why he's talking to Ayato, this other girl. And Ayato comes to, proffer gifts or whatever it is. She's there in the classroom. She interrupts the scene with Ishino basically choking Tsutsui by the window. I was expecting her to flop him out, whatever story they're up in the school building. And immediately she starts giving the third degree to Ayato, who do you think you are, talking to this guy, the boyfriend of my friend, and whatever like that. And of course, Ayato killing him with kindness all over again. She's like, oh my goodness, you're so beautiful, you're so nice. Why does this guy, this otaku, this nerd, this geek, have so many beautiful girls, beautiful people surrounding him? And immediately Ishino's like, oh, I like her. That did make me laugh out loud. And again, I was just kind of smitten and sort of, as an anime viewer, swooning over Ito's, seeming growing interest. At first, being completely shocked walking in on this scene and being introduced to Ayato, and then immediately he just sort of woof, right out the door. That was pretty freaking funny. And so, the episode on whole didn't really amount to a whole hell of a lot, if we're honest. There was a whole side quest with, Setsui and Ito trying to go get him the latest fashions, trying to make a fashion statement, as per his mother saying, do you want to be walking around, be seen walking around in what are effectively just, like pajama pants? So she hands him money, and they run into Mitsuya Blondie Bag, and Setsui's like, hey, could you make me more fashionable? By the way, you're wearing that scarf because you're worried about like catching a cold, and the hat and everything like that. And I love they go to like the clothes store, and effectively Mitsuya puts Setsui in like the exact same outfit, just different colors. Whereas he's got like the yellow hat, he's got a dark one on Setsui's head. He's got like the blue scarf or whatever it is instead of the yellow one that he's wearing, or however it was, the white one. Like just alternating colors, and he's absolutely miserable having to do this for this jerk face he doesn't even like, and whatever. And just the whole thing, it was charming, it was funny, it was engaging. But just some of the animation, on certain levels, the wonky animation, expounded upon a given joke or a given facial expression, and it made it that much funnier. But then there were times where it just stood out like, what is going on with the animation direction of this episode? The odd angles, again, Dutch angles every which way, and side profile, and it was just so weird. It looked like they were legitimately cropping, scenes, almost entire scenes, whether they were trying to hide crappy animation or whatever, or incomplete. And it's just like, why am I looking up someone's nose? Like, what is the purpose? Other than potentially to pinch the penny. As I say. But at least it was enjoyable. At least it gave me a hell of a lot more to talk about as far as criticisms go in the animation aspect of the episode. And it was a rollicking good time. It was still an enjoyable episode. Just these things stood out to me as really being strange and really being odd, and what can I say? I'm going to impart whatever experience I had with a given episode. So yeah, until the next one, otherwise it'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.